Darcy sat at the head of the long boardroom table and trained his sight on James Hurst, head of the legal department. If he continued to look precisely in that direction, he wouldn't be distracted by her. Instead of obeying his wishes, though, his eyes started to shift, pulling in the same direction they always did. No, he wasn't going to do it. He couldn't look at her again. She'd taunted him for the last 6 weeks with her teasing grins and her brilliant green eyes. Those eyes grew fiery when she was angry or determined to convince someone of her opinion, and he couldn't look away. 6 weeks now, and the chance to apologize hadn't happened. He'd simply never had the opportunity. She wasn't head of the legal department, so he never met with her one-on-one. And she always seemed to be chatting to one person or another before group meetings or while she walked around the building. Her assistant, or Ms. Hinkle from personnel, or both, accompanied her most of the time. Miss Elizabeth Bennet had become friendly with a number of his employees since she began working at Darcy Holdings, but he wasn't one of them. He tried to maintain his gaze on Hurst, but Elizabeth Bennet was like a freaking magnet, and her pull was overwhelming. He could never avoid looking at her for long. When had that started? He honestly couldn't remember. One day he acknowledged she was an attractive woman. The next he fought to prevent her from discovering any hint of his interest, and he was definitely interested. What part of him didn't react when she tucked a lock of that long chestnut hair around her ear, or moistened her lips, offering a slight peek of her delicate pink tongue? He shifted in his chair while his gaze traced the graceful line of her neck. His eyes wrenched from that spot under her earlobe back to Hurst. He had to stop this. She worked for him, for Pete's sake. What did he expect could happen? He'd never dated an employee, and he had no intention of starting with her. Even the idea of it was completely inappropriate. Who was he kidding? It was unlikely she'd agree to even a cup of coffee with him, unless he used work as an excuse. He'd never had the opportunity to apologize for his inane comments on her first day, and when he did try to speak to her, her eyes widened, like he was some hideous creature out of a horror movie.